I have always been a fan of the Indiana Jones movies because I like the clever traps and the places that he travels to. And that's one of the main reasons that I loved LEGO Indiana Jones so much. The makers of that game remembered that it was the puzzles that were the most fun part of the Indiana Jones world, and they kept the combat simple and easy. Unfortunately, the developers of this game seemed to go the opposite way, and made less puzzles and more emphasis on combat. And in this game it's way harder since every time you die you have to go back to a checkpoint. But at least they give you unlimited lives. The graphics in the game look really good for a Wii game, and I was really impressed with the art style and the different locations that Indy had to visit. And the guy who did the voice for Indy did a good job. He really sounded like Harrison Ford most of the time, but you can still tell it's not him. They have a good tutorial in the game to teach you how to play, but unfortunately it's not skippable, which means if you die during the tutorial you'll have to go through that part of the tutorial again. And there's no way to speed up the text, so it can get really frustrating. The game is broken down to different gameplay sections: combat, puzzles, and gunfights. Let's start with combat, since it's the most common thing that you'll do in the game, unfortunately. And it's also the most overly complicated thing in the whole game. Each of the enemies have a life bar that you can see to tell you how much energy they have left until they die. To get their life down, you have to punch or use certain objects on them. Since this is a Wii game, the developers just had to put motion controls in the game. They decided that one of the best places for them would be in the combat, and they would be wrong. That would be one of the worst places to put them. No one wants to play a brawler like that. It would get tiring really fast. Worse yet, half of the motion controls don't work well at all, and that would be the motion controls linked to the nunchuck. It would constantly miss the movements I would do. It got to the point where I would only use the Wiimote to do the punches. You could also pick up objects and throw them at enemies, or hold onto them and use them to beat them with. There was also an interesting combat move of holding onto an enemy and throwing them into a specially iconed item, and it'll do extra damage to the enemy. It reminded me of what you could do in Mad World, only less bloody. It does help that you can hold down the B button and do a whipping motion with your Wiimote to use your whip to bring enemies closer to you. In fact, I found this move the most useful to do. It was a quick way to dispatch enemies. The whip move could also be used to knock out the weapons the other enemies could be holding, so it's doubly useful. Then there are the shooting parts of the game, which I thought were great. They always put your character in a third-person perspective mode to fire your gun. You press up, left, or right depending on what kind of cover you were behind. Then you just point at the screen with your crosshairs and then you fire your gun. To reload, you just flick the Wiimote, and it worked perfectly. As you're traveling through the locations, they'll give you simple puzzles to solve, but they also felt right for the game that you were playing. They really felt like something the character of Indiana Jones might actually come across in a normal adventure, and that made these sections even more extremely fun. There was also a flying section in this game that I really loved. You hold your Wiimote up like you were holding a joystick, and you use the motion controls to pilot your plane. Then you use the B button to shoot at the other planes. It was a lot of fun, but it sure was hard. I could see some people not enjoying this since it did take some getting used to, but once you did, you'll find it very enjoyable. There are plenty of extras to unlock by finding hat icons and performing glory moves. Glory moves are just extra things your characters can do in combat. Like for example, when I did this glory move by grabbing onto a pipe and using the steam to hurt the other enemies. There were quite a few unlockables from the trailers of the movies, multiplayer modes, and even an entirely new game to play called Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. It's not really new, but a re-release of an old Indiana Jones adventure game, and it's a lot of fun. Now there are some multiplayer games with some co-op play, but unfortunately my second Wiimote is currently broken, so I was unable to test it. But it does exist in a playable form in this game. I just don't know how it is. Now, I do have to mention that while playing this game, I ran across a couple bugs. One that really sucked, and one that was just awesome. The one that sucked froze my game, and I had to pull the power cord from my Wii in order to get my Wii to work again. Thank goodness the game autosaves often, so I didn't lose too much progress. But there was this one part where I was fighting this boss character, and he just kept killing me. I couldn't even get close to him because he was just barbecuing me. Then without warning, he just stopped moving. And then I realized this game just glitched on his character. So what did I do? I beat the crap out of him while he was frozen. And it worked. That's right. You're gonna take it. Oh, you don't like this? Tough! And then when he finally did unfreeze, he was a dead man walking. And a few seconds later, he died. Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings is about a 5 to 6 hour game, and it has some really interesting extras to unlock. So it really does have some real replayability, but the problem in recommending the game is the combat, since it's such a big part of the game. It's just not that fun, so it's kinda hard to recommend this game for a buy, but it is definitely worth a rent.